and a structuralist Roman Jacobson. So I hope you all very well know about this literary giant. It is Roman Jacobson. As I stated, he is a Russian and American linguistic and literary theorist. So Roman Jacobson, he is known for this major work. It is two aspects of language. So apart from that, he is also very famous for this essay. It is Linguistics and Poetics. So Roman Jacobson, what he has dealt in this essay, it is he has given the differentiation between what is linguistic and poetry. The differentiation between language with poetry. Okay, so you know that he is a prominent member in Moscow Linguistic Circle and Prague Linguistic Circle. A prominent figure who developed his theories under these two major, this Moscow Linguistic Circle and Prague Linguistic Circle. So what he did in this essay, Linguistics and Poetics, as I have stated, it explores the relationship between language and poetry, focusing on how poetic language deviates from ordinary language and a distinctive function of poetic language. He starts the essay by discussing the fundamental properties of a language. So as Roman Jacobson, he stated some fundamental properties of a language. It is referential, emotive, conative, phatic, metalingual and poetic function. According to him, there are 6 fundamental properties of a language. I'll explain briefly what is this. Actually, you know about what is Roman Jacobson. He is famous for defamiliarization. I hope you would have studied this. Defamiliarization. What is this? Stating the same thing. It's totally different from ordinary language. Okay. Instead of saying something in a common language, a poet he defamiliarizes. He defamiliarizes the certain things. Then it becomes completely a new thing. Okay. So there are some properties of a language we have. It is referential function. I have stated the 6 properties of a language. Okay. Yes. The referential function here, no. The language, the writers or a speaker, whoever it is, we use the language for conveying conveying message, subject matter. Okay, so if we use the language for conveying a message, only the subject matter, that is called referential function of a language. Okay, for an example, I can give you one example. The sun is glowing. So simply the meaning is the sun is shining. Okay, so if I use the language for this conveying the subject matter, this is called referential function. The second, it is emotional function. It is called emotive function. So even the word itself, we have this emotive function. It is, what is it? I use a language or anybody uses the language for conveying the emotion. What a lovely evening it is. What a lovely class is this, isn't it? If we use our emotion, if a language that functions to express our emotion, that is called emotive function. And conative function. So the language we use to influence something or persuade something. For an example, I use for command, for request, for expressing something, we use this conative function of the language. If I say the word close the window, close the door, what I do? I give you some command, isn't it? I am influencing you to do something. I am persuading you to do something. So if I use the language for this use, this is called a conative function of a language. Then phatic function of a language. So phatic function, it is very common. So normally, when you meet somebody in the morning, what do? You say hello, hi, good morning, how are you? So it is like a start of messages. Isn't it? We use the language to begin some conversation, to start up something. That is called phatic function of a language. Okay, so if you say this, good morning, I'm happy to meet you. This, what is the function of a language here? It is a phatic function of a language. Yes. The metalingual. Metalingual in this case, what we do here, according to Roman Jacobson, here, we see language as a language. So here, language function as the purpose of a language. We deal the structure of the language. We analyze how syntax and rhythm, meter, what all these things are functioning here. This is called the metalingual function of a language. I can give an example. there is a word cat. Cat, how many letters are in this word? There are 3 letters. Okay, only the 3 letters. So if I explain you a word cat has 3 letters, this is metalingual function of the language. And the last, it is poetic function. So this is more important. Comparing all these things, a poet, no, we are changing the ordinary language. A poet is changing ordinary language into, what is it? He is defamiliarizing. Okay, so this is poetic function. Poetic function, it is, language is used to employ aesthetic and artistic qualities. Okay, the language, we use the language for, so here we can use the term defamiliarization. So I can give you an example for this poetic function, that is curtain of grey drafts. So actually, writers, poets, they use the word curtain of grey drafts. That is, simply they are meaning raining. Rain, isn't it? It is a heavy rain. So what a word a poet is using? Curtain of grey drafts. In that case, what it becomes? Simply it is raining. How the poet is defamiliarizing the common word, ordinary word. It is curtain of grey drafts. It becomes something new, no? That becomes the poetic quality. I hope it is clear. So my lecture, so this is about that I have planned to cover. Yes, the next session Madam will take. Yes, thank you.
Good morning. So I am happy to start the second part of the essay, the aspects of poetic functions. I am so happy to talk about Roman Jakobson. He was a Russian-American linguistic. Actually, he belonged to Czechoslovakia and he was a Slavic scholar also. After the Second World War, when Nazi they take over the Czechoslovakia and the scientists, the scholars, many of them they moved. They are forced to move their native countries and they all settled in America. That he had a chance to he had a chance to explore the ideas of Claude Lévi-Strauss, and he was highly influenced by the structuralist ideologies. So as how Saussure he proposed 2 different approaches to linguistics, and Roman Jakobson also, and he proposed a new ideology in the field of linguistics. Linguistics, it is based on language, phonology, phonemes, the mechanics of words. Linguistics is study of language. And he proposes ideas that the linguistics, they have to study the poetics. Poetics here, what do we mean by that? The study of the functions of language, especially poetry. So poetry is the fundamental aspects. So it provides a great ground to the linguistics to study about that, the structure and pattern of the language. This is a great platform. So where they can study, they can explore the structures of the language in studying poetry itself. So this paper entitled Linguistics and Poetics, it's a essay, it's a paper Roman Jakobson he presented in a conference arranged by the titled Style and Language in the Indiana Universities in the year 1958. In that conference he presented this paper, and later this paper becomes very popular and many of his books the paper is included. So in the particular paper, as it is stated earlier, and he explored the relationship between language and poetry. Okay. So we all know that poetry, it is different from ordinary language. So as per Roman Jakobson point of view, it is different from referential. Referential is a plain, it conveys only meanings alone. So poetry is different from ordinary things. That we all know that. Poetic forms, it has that aesthetic qualities also. Poetry means it has some aesthetic qualities, aesthetic features of that. So while we read poetry, readers, we can experience that, the aestheticness in it. Okay. So the poetic functions, as it is stated, it deliberately derivates from ordinary referential language. And it gives importance. Poetry emphasizes on 3 things: form, structure and sound pattern of the language itself. It gives importance to the form, the pattern and then sound qualities. Yes. And then the fundamental aspects of the language in the sense that So it highlights. Okay. So it gives importance to linguistic studies. Roman Jacobson, he highlights several key aspects of the poetic functions. From the ordinary to we change into poetry. So what are the things that could be included? So he pointed out some key things. So he listed out some 6 or 7 key aspects that qualities makes ordinary referential language into a poetic language. And deliberately poets use all these things. The first one is foregrounding. Foregrounding is a kind of it refers to that. Foregrounding refers to that certain kind of a text in the poem that stand out from the other words. So that stand out, it is very different to that audience. It gets the attention of the audience. For example, he cites an example, maybe as he belonged to Russian writers and they refer many Russian and French literary pieces and poems only. He in this poem, foregrounding, he refers to that, draw attention to the form of the language. A particular text, it stands out, it's like an odd man out, it is very different and it gets the attention of the readers, attention of the audience. Maybe it is possible. How it could be achieved by using striking imagery or syntax, rearranging unusual syntax, word arrangement, and striking imageries, an unusual form of metaphor and simile. Through these techniques, the poet he gets the attention of the maybe reader, and the text it stands out. The word in the particular sentence it stands out. It is different. The example is that the stars are blazing gold from the Russian poem Silentium, and the word is that the stars are blazing gold. So here the adjective blazing it is placed before the noun gold. Yes. So it adds that the quality. It describes it little bit deeper that the description of the stars, the gold itself. It adds some mood, it elaborates the descriptions in such a way using some unusual imagery, striking metaphors, imageries. The poet achieved this. So foregrounding is the first thing. The word is used. So it makes the text stand out from the other. It makes it different. It is achieved through syntax arrangement and using imagery, very unusual imagery and metaphors, similes and all. Okay. The next one is actually the foregrounding. It gives that the intensity of the descriptions. It deepens the intensity of the descriptions and it is very close to our heart. It gives a very different experience to the readers. The next one is defamiliarization. As this concept is associated to Wittgenstein defamiliarizations. So this concept, this poetic functions, this is defamiliarize or disrupt conventional language. A conventional, ordinary language, we have to disturb it. Okay, so this is called defamiliarizes. So in all poetic functions and poetry, we could find this ideology. With this techniques, defamiliarization techniques, we could find it. Yes. The deviations from the ordinary language. So when it deviates from ordinary things, it has some aesthetic qualities. Maybe it laid on it. It had it. We all know that. Ordinary things, we don't get the attention of the reader. When something ordinary matter, it is presented in a maybe extraordinary way, maybe in some unusual way, automatically it attracts that attention of the reader. So it has to disturb the ordinary conversations. When it is disturbed, automatically it becomes poetic. You see that non-kadidam eluthigiren. This is an ordinary statement. How it becomes poetic? Kadidam eluthigiren non. Maybe I am just joking. In such a way, when it disturbs the ordinary things, automatically it becomes poems. Yes. Then we'll move to the next one is sound pattern. We all know that poetry is heavily depend on sounds only. Alliteration, assonations and rhythm, meter, following all those things. the poems has a kind of a harmonious and musical qualities attached to them. So this is very unusual. This is the usual thing for that poetry and unusual in ordinary conversation. Ordinary languages we could not expect that sound quality. It is not a harmonious and musical in pattern. But in poetic language it is musical. So various use of poetic devices are employed to achieve this musicality of the text. Then we'll move to a multiple meaning. So this is very important thing. Literature itself, it won't say everything in a direct way. Through literature, especially in poetry, the concept is conveyed in an implied way only. In direct way, it won't communicate anything. So if it opens doors for many implied meanings also. When we look twice or thrice, when we read, when we visit the poems twice or thrice, it gives many meanings. It opens many doors, many layers we could find that. So this is possible in poetry, multiple meaning. The third one is, and fourth one. Poetry is possible, poetic language is possible for multiple meaning. It allows multiple interpretations and layers of meaning we could find it. Now I remembered one of the songs. Generally we could Yen Vanile Ore Vendila. It's a very popular song. Ordinary when we listen to the song, Yen Vanile Ore Vendila, likewise it conveyed. But actually, Yen Vanile Ore Vendila, the stresses fall on the second word. It means that entire sky, only moons are there in my sky. Okay? It adds some poetic quality. So when we revisit the poems, it is capable of providing multiple meanings. And next one is intertextuality. Intertextuality, it involves that interplay between different texts. Generally, if I write a poem, immediately if we watch a movie, there is a reference of old movies or that. Recently, it is a trend. We all watch that movie. Manjumal Boys. The entire movie has a base, has a reference to the another classical movie. So referring another text is very common. Usually poet do that when we talk about drama, Krishna, and in poems, automatically he is like a Krishna. The other poetic lines is included in that poem. They will freely use it. So it adds another layer of aesthetic qualities to the text. So using all these things, that is foregrounding, defamiliarizations, sound pattern, multiple meaning and intertextuality. We have mentioned 5 things are mentioned, and these makes an ordinary language into a poetic language. So poetry is a complex medium. So a linguistic can work on maybe the poetry, and he could gain a great insight towards the functions of language. Linguistics is the study of language only. How instead of studying the mechanics, sound pattern, other thing, if you shift from that language to poetics, study the structures of poetry, and you gain a deeper insights. So this argument and he proposes through this essay, Linguistics and Poetics. Thank you.